Okay. Hi, everybody. It is I, Allie, of Water Vanity. Um, if you have not been following on Twitter or Facebook, there have been no entries for a while because I'm really sick again. I have another sinus infection. The second one of my entire life, which is coming now a month after the first one of my entire life. So I haven't been able to write anything for a while. My doctor didn't want me to take antibiotics or try to get better without them since I already had a round and she didn't want me to develop a resistance. So I just had to, for like a week, not quite a week, better part of a week, I was just taking like a decongestant and doing like a neti pot and hoping that would be enough. Which, I mean, I don't know if you've ever done neti pot. It's a really good supplement for stuff like this, but I don't think it'll cure anything. But they're like little teapots, like that big probably, and you just like take this and you pour in like a saline solution. You just take this spout and like stick it kind of up your nose and like tilt your head to the side and forward, and the saline solution just goes like up and like out the other nostril, and it's really weird and really gross. The whole point of it is to like flush out all the gunk and grossness that's in your sinuses when you have a cold or if you have allergies or sinus infection. Um, and it is extremely effective, which means there's a lot of disgusting things coming out of your face. It's kind of like cathartic or gratifying in the same way like popping a really big pimple is. It's just like, oh, it is no longer in my face. And I can see it, and now I understand why I feel so shitty. Um, so yeah, neti pots. They're pretty fun. So anyway, so now I'm on, eventually I started getting worse. So now I've been on antibiotics, and I'm taking a bunch of things. Which last time this happened, everyone told me to write a blog, and I did, about Labyrinth, and watching it while I was super stoned on everything, which I am now, because now I'm taking everything once I started getting worse. So I'm taking a Z-Pack, which is antibiotic, and Sudafed, which is what meth is made out of. Fun fact, I don't know, whatever. And nasal spray, which is like a steroid, and Advil to like combat the terrible hurtiness of it. I mean, if you've never had a sinus infection, they are so painful. It's just like everything when I started like really taking the turn for the worse, it was like everything was so just swollen and clogged and everything that my teeth hurt. Like my teeth, like every bit of my face hurt and like my glands were so swollen that you could just like I could see them in the mirror. It was just like the slightest touch on my face and it just hurt. It was terrible. So now I'm on a bunch of drugs. And I just took a bunch of them because it was time for all of my new doses. And, Princess Bride. That's what I watched today. Because Boyfriend had never seen it, if you can believe that. What the fuck? He used to work at a Blockbuster, and he's never seen Princess Bride. At least not all the way through, so we watched it today. He didn't want to watch it today. But I used veto power of sick girlfriend whose apartment we are in. So I love that movie. I love the book too, which if you didn't know, actually, Princess Bride started out as a book by the same name, by the same author, actually, by William Goldman. And the frame storyline of Princess Bride, the movie, which is sick boy played by one of the Fred Savage, I think, one of the Savages, the Wonder Years one, not the Boy Meets World one, is sick and his grandfather is reading him the book. That's the sort of, and that's actually like the bare bones of the story that sort of starts the frame story of the book, which is basically that the narrator is an author, and the narrator's dad used to read him that book when he was sick, and he loved it. And so he eventually buys it for his son, who hates it. And he doesn't understand why his son hates it so much because he loved the book so much when he was a kid. And so he goes back and reads it and realizes that it's a really boring story, and his dad just skipped over parts and only told him the good bits. And so the rest of the Sword of Fame tale is just him kind of getting the story to the point that we see it. And with that knowledge, and it's fun, the book is really good, and I highly recommend reading it if you like the movie, because it kind of, in a way, it makes the movie make more sense. And it makes the movie make more sense in some ways. And it provides context. It tells you what gets taken out of the original boring Princess Bride and why. And then, so you do that, you read the book, and then what we get is just the adventure tale. But the fun part about it, and the reason why I think it makes the movie kind of better, is that, or not necessarily better, but in good in a different way, I guess, is that it takes that and, sorry, I'm totally spacing out. I mentioned I'm on a lot of medication right now, right? So, anyways, basically, so when we get to the movie, all that we have is this really sort of kind of bare bones, quick and dirty adventure story, and it's great. It's fun, and that I think is the whole point of the movie, and the whole taking out of everything in the book that he talks about is done because the story wasn't fun, and it should be. So what we get in the movie is the fun version that has had basically a lot of the sort of weight, and there was actually like a whole bunch of political commentary that he talks about a little bit and summarizes and all this stuff that gets taken out because it just didn't matter to the adventure story. And so I think that's a sort of unexplained reason why the movie that we get is a very not complex tale, because it's what he took it out to be, basically. And I think that it's great. I think the movie is so well executed for what it is. Like, it takes itself just seriously enough in the right ways that it works. Because it's not supposed to be some, like, big, serious period drama, and it's not supposed to be anything except a fun adventure. And it is. And part of what makes it so fun, part of what makes it so fun is that it's got these great characters. So the hero of the story is Wesley, who has a really interesting, I think, character arc, which is that he starts out as, like, you know, the farm boy who's in love with the master's daughter, and he goes away to seek his fortune so they can get married, like all this very old school traditional stuff. And great. So, you know, he does that and he goes away, and then he comes back and he's an anti-hero. So he comes back as the Dread Pirate Roberts, and you know, he's basically like, no, I've killed a lot of people. Whatever, I've killed a lot of people. He just goes on about that, how he's killed a lot of people, because the whole thing about the Dread Pirate Roberts is that he leaves no survivors. And there's like a 5-year gap in between when he left and when he did, and then like the timeline, basically he's been Dread Pirate Roberts for 2 years. So he's left no survivors for 2 years. So he's now this like amalgamation of a traditional hero and an anti-hero. And that's really cool. And Carrie always just executes it so perfectly. I think it's the mustache. He has this like little pencil mustache thing when he comes back as the Dread Pirate Roberts. And it's just, I think that's what makes it work. I'm a strong believer in the power of a good mustache. I kind of wish I could grow one and like look good, but it would look stupid even if I could grow one. Sorry, boyfriend keeps saying me. Anyway, so yeah, Carrie always, he's just so good in this movie. And all the characters, most of the characters, Buttercup sucks, but I'll get to that in a minute. Because they just have these fantastic characters, and I think that's what also just really carries it through. because you have Carrie Elways, who's fantastic. You have Inigo Montoya, who's also just wonderful. Um, he has like the most iconic line of the show, of the movie. You know, hello, my name is Inigo Montoya. You killed my father. Prepare to die. It's really good. But so there's that. And I'm a big fan of Inigo Montoya because his is a very classic storyline, but it's executed it's executed so well. So this whole thing is revenge. He wants to kill the man who killed his father, but rather than just like go after him, he talks about like how much he studied, and he really emphasizes the study and like the education that he got, to do this. And the sense of honor that he has is very interesting and very specific about how like he helps Wesley get up to the point where he can fight him and lets him rest so that it's a well-rested fight, so there's no honor in a dirty fight. Just really spectacular character development. And I love that character. And Fezzik doesn't really have a lot of character development, so to speak, but he's just basically Andre the Giant. The end. And you love him because he's Andre the Giant and he's lovable. And that's another thing that I think is so good about this, is they make these characters, Inigo and Fezzik and Wesley, so lovable, and they really take their time to do that. But the really funny thing about it is that they've all killed a lot of people. So they're like, lovable scamp murderers. Lovable murderers. What is that? I think that's really, just the juxtaposition in it is fantastic. So there's that. And then Humperdinck is a weird character. Everybody talks, the whole thing in the movie is he's so ugly and so froggy. I actually don't think he's that ugly. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm not into Humperdinck, but I'm just kind of like, I feel bad for the guy. They make him kind of sympathetic, despite the fact that he's trying to kill Buttercup to start a war, that he's like all this stuff, and he's a coward. They like really emphasize that he's a coward, and what's so crazy about that is he's so afraid of being a coward, and that is what makes him such a coward. It's really good. And the six-fingered man, whose name I can't remember, begins with an R, Count something. He's a less complex character compared to the others, at least. But he's also pretty good. And I think most of his character development is really interesting because I think most of his character definitions don't necessarily come from himself, other than the fact that he's clearly a sadist. I wonder if Count is like a reference to Marquis de Sade. Probably not. I'm probably reading too much into that. But anyways, he's clearly a sadist, and that's kind of his big thing. But I think most of his character development, interestingly enough, doesn't actually come from himself, but it comes from Inigo. So he's sort of defined by his enemy, and that's really good. So they have all of these spectacular characters, and Wallace Shawn. Oh my God, Wallace Shawn! Like, Boyfriend was so angry that Wallace Shawn died in like the first 30 minutes of that movie. He was so pissed off. It was really funny, I thought. But so like Wallace Shawn, he's only on the screen for like 20 minutes, and you just like his personality just done, tied up with a bow. It's beautiful. Like, you get him perfectly. And then there's also Miracle Max, played by Billy Crystal, to perfection. I love Miracle Max, and he's only got like 2 scenes. Perfect. And then there's Buttercup. I really don't like Buttercup. I really, really don't. I think that she's a terrible character, and I think the fact that she's a terrible character is just kind of drawn more into attention because everyone around her is such a great character. It's like Miracle Max. I keep wanting to say Mad Max, not Thunderdome. Miracle Max. Even he has like more personality than Buttercup, and we only see him for 3 seasons. Scenes, not seasons. And like, Buttercup is like the whole point of this movie. Like, everything revolves around her, and I don't even think that she's like you can kind of argue for Twilight even. Kirsten Stewart is supposed to be like something for people to project themselves into the story on her terrible bland personality. You can make that argument, and I can respect that. I don't see that with Buttercup, because her personality is like clearly defined by everybody else, but never by herself. So she's just, I really hate that. She's so fucking useless. Like, when they're in the fire swamp, and Wesley's fighting the rodent of unusual size, she just fucking stands there. And I'd be like, okay, fine, whatever, you don't fight, you're weak, or bleh, whatever shit you want to put on that. Okay, cool. Can you hand him his fucking sword? Because it is just lying there, and he's wrestling the rat, and he can't get it. Can you do that? No? Okay, so no. And then, so he fights the rodent of unusual size, and gets away, and it, like, goes towards her, and she just stands there. Goes, Wesley! Ah! She just fucking stands there, and finally moves, and, like, good for her, way to figure that one out, Buttercup. And, like, she moves away, and it, like, comes after her and starts, like, nibbling at her skirt. And so she grabs a stick, and it's, like, a hefty stick. It's like a club. It's, like, that thick. And rather than, like, bonk it on the head and, like, knock it unconscious or, like, break its skull or whatever, she just kind of, like, pokes at it. And, like, what? What? Just so useless. And, like, I feel like they created that character for the Buttercup Humperdinck relationship, because that relationship actually I totally get. Like, it makes perfect sense within the movie and the characters and their motivations. So Buttercup is dead inside, so she's agreed to marry Humperdinck, and Humperdinck just picks her because she's one of the people in his kingdom. She's beautiful and she is kind. Those are like his three things, because he wants the people to like her and to find her relatable and to care about her, so that he can have her killed and frame another country for it and start a war. Which is a really interesting thing for a coward. Actually, no, I guess that makes perfect sense. Rather than actually just start a war, he has to make it look like the other guys did, rather than take any of the blame himself. But yeah, so that I get. But I never understood, it's like never discussed why Wesley loves Buttercup, except that she's pretty. And I mean, I guess that's part of the whole, like, distilled down storyline, kind of, but since it's not really explained in the movie like it is in the book, that, I mean, I love the movie, I'm not gonna say otherwise, but that always seemed kind of weird to me. Like, what did Wesley and Buttercup talk about? What? There's nothing to fucking talk about. She can't talk about anything, she's just useless, she just sits there, being beautiful and kind. But no one ever shows her being all that kind. I mean, she's nice enough, but, like, she never does anything crazy. Like, oh, so kind. No, she just exists. Really annoying character. I really don't like that character. If you can't tell. And this video is, like, 20 minutes long at this point, so I'm gonna stop. We'll hopefully get back to regular updates soon, once I start feeling better. I can't even wear my glasses right now because it hurts my sinuses, so I can't write anything because then it hurts my head. So hopefully we'll get back to those soon. If not, then I'll probably do another video, maybe about like Twin Peaks or something. And then yeah, so everybody have a good night. I'm gonna take some Benadryl and go to sleep. My doctor told me to. Benadryl. Rather than, like NyQuil, and mix all that with my meds. So, Benadryl. I'm gonna take Benadryl and go to sleep after I post this. And don't get sick, everybody. Don't get sick, because it sucks. And this has been a presentation of Allie is severely medicated and talks about stuff theater.